Transport workers and trade unions are criticising amended isolation rules in Queensland and New South Wales that allow essential workers in industries such as groceries and freight to keep working if they are classed as close contacts. It would be on the proviso of meeting strict health criteria. I spoke to Australian Council of Trade Unions Acting Secretary Liam O'Brien a little earlier. Liam, the unions are describing this as a reckless decision.
We're really concerned that workers who could be COVID positive are going to be sent back into workplaces. I understand that we've got supply chains that are under a lot of pressure. We are concerned that this could not only impact the health and safety of workers in those supply chains, but ultimately become a futile exercise and quite short-sighted if all we end up with is increasing case numbers in supply chains that ultimately cause further complications in weeks coming.
And so what is it specifically about the concerns? Is it increased exposure to other cases, or do you feel that some might slip through the cracks?
Absolutely, we're concerned that some will slip through the cracks. We've seen how precarious our supply chains are. We need to be making sure that we're isolating those that potentially are COVID positive. We need to be making sure that we're using rapid tests as far and wide as we can and really focusing it on those essential supply chains at the moment where we've got supply concerns around accessing rapid tests. But obviously anything that's going to compromise the health and safety of those workers in those supply chains needs to be done very cautiously.
Now, as you mentioned, there is pressure on the supply chain shortages. We're seeing empty supermarket shelves and many sort of situations like that. So what would it take for the unions to feel comfortable for drivers to get back on the road as an asymptomatic close contact?
Well, the first thing we need to make sure is that the federal government sit down with workers and their representatives about this. Unfortunately, again, we're seeing workers abandoned and forced to work in less than safe conditions. We want to see a much better use of PPE across the whole country, but in particular in those essential workplaces. We need to be ensuring that all workers are given access to P2 masks. That's what the health advice is now saying. We need to make sure that every worker has access to those masks.
What about access to rapid antigen tests? What is that like for drivers? Are there any sort of extra access stipulations in place, or is that something that you'd want to see as well?
Look, rapid tests have been a real failure of this country. Much like the vaccines, we urged, along with transport unions, along with doctors and small business, we urged Scott Morrison back in October to get on with it and get us rapid tests. I think if we had more access to rapid tests, we'd not only see lower case numbers, we wouldn't see workplaces being shut down at the frequency that they are. Rapid tests are a really essential tool in terms of fighting Omicron. We know that it will pick up a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of cases and keep workplaces safe and keeping businesses open. The Morrison government's got to work hard to build supplies and really focus it in right now around those priority sectors.
Speaking of the Prime Minister, unions had been urging Scott Morrison for unions to be included in an urgent supply chain issue meeting that was scheduled for this afternoon. Did that happen?
We want to sit down with the government and work through these issues. It is important, if we are going to talk about sending workers back to work in less than safe conditions, that workers and their unions are engaged. This is not a decision that the government should be making with employers in the sector alone. This impacts the health and safety of workers, and it's workers that are bearing the brunt of this pandemic right now.
Liam O'Brien, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.